last few weeks we've been doing a lesson on the 10 Commandments, and we've been calling it Teen Topics, but we've been looking at the 10 Commandments usually each week at a different one, and sort of looking more closely to what they mean, sort of taking them a little bit further than just maybe the normal way we want to interpret them. So maybe some of the kids can remember, what are some of the commandments or some of the topics that we've covered so far in the class? So you guys remember.
Not lie.
To not lie. Was that last week? Because I don't remember that one. But yes, that's one of the 10 Commandments, don't lie.
Stealing.
Stealing, right? Last week y'all talked about stealing.
Rest on the Sabbath.
Resting on the Sabbath, right? Mr. Roper had that talk about resting on the Sabbath. That's one of our ways that we connect, get closer to God. And there's actually one more that we've talked about. Does anyone remember what it was? No? Right there?
I mean, one talking about it's like it is a set of rules that we should follow to have a good life, but it's not like you have to do this to go first for 5 generations or something.
Yeah, exactly. The very first talk that Stacy gave about the 10 Commandments being blessings rather than just, they are rules, but they're also blessings that God has given to us. And so we're going to continue with this talk, but this week we're going to be talking about words. So there you go, Nolan got it up there on the first slide. Words are everywhere. We're always thinking words. We're always speaking words. We're always listening to words. Right now, I'm speaking words. Hopefully you're listening to my words. Every time we look at our phones to read a text, to look at an Instagram comment, you sing along to the songs on the radio. Every time I just drive on the highway and pass the road signs, there's words. Maybe if we look up here at some of our favorite examples of entertainment. Anyone here a fan of Harry Potter?
No.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yes, kind of? No, everyone's a great fan of Harry Potter.
I've heard of
The
it.
books and the movies, right?
Yeah. He's really good.
What would those things be without the words, right?
Just
Or maybe for the parents, you remember reading in high school The Great Gatsby?
Great
Classic
Gatsby?
works of literature.
Great Gatsby.
Yeah, so
I've
you've all
read
read it already too. If you haven't, you will.
it. My dad's a high school teacher.
Personally, some of my favorite words are movie quotes, and so
Princess
we
Bride.
haven't seen the most quotable movie of all time.
Yes.
Right.
You killed my father, prepare to die.
Exactly. And even some of the words that make up our laws, some of the greatest historical documents, everyone can recognize the words we the people written into the Constitution. Okay, guys. Right? And then even most importantly, the Bible, the words of God. If you remember the game that we played this morning, we couldn't use words. We just had to draw them. But once someone guessed what it was, even if no one knew what it was originally, once you said the word, everyone immediately recognized, oh yeah, that's what it is, right? Words are our primary mode of communication. When we use words, it's our way of relating to each other. Our primary way of relating to each other. Whether we're speaking them, which is the primary way of doing it, or writing them, or reading them, or even hearing them. We use our phones to share our words. We use social media to share our words, especially in this day and age. And face-to-face, right now, with the conversations that we have to those closest with us. So I read something really interesting online about how many words someone speaks a day. Does anyone have a guess about how many words the average person speaks in one day?
What about
A million.
It's a little bit lower than a million, but good guess.
999,000?
1,000. It's actually more than 1,000. Also,
50,000.
900,000.
75.
900,000. That's also a little bit too high. We'll get one more.
2,500.
75,000.
That's also a little bit too high.
Dang.
So the sweet spot's actually about 16,000, which apparently to most of y'all sounds too low. But to me that sounds like a lot of words, but maybe that's just me. Unsurprisingly, women tend to speak more words than men, and probably most of y'all tend to speak more words than me. But that's just the words that we speak. What if we added to that every word that we heard? What if we added to that every word that we wrote, or every word that we read? If we added them all up,
Billions.
the number of, maybe we'll call them word transactions, probably is greater than 50,000, maybe up to 100,000.
75,000.
Maybe another way to think about the just vast number of words in our lives is how many words you would speak in a lifetime. Do you want to guess that one?
1 trillion.
No.
16 billion.
No.
72,136.
No, that's obviously something. No. I'll give you one more.
I'm gonna say 100 billion.
No. Okay, we're also guessing a little high here.
800 billion.
A billion is pretty close. 1 billion. 1 billion. The actual number is 860 billion.
That's not that much.
Oh, it's not.
I want to speak more words.
Anyone recognize this? The Bible, right? The Bible's pretty long, right? Has anyone read the whole Bible?
50,000 words.
You would have to read the Bible more than 1,000 times. That's how many words you're going to speak in your lifetime. That's a lot of words, right? So words then are everywhere, and they fill our lives every day. But surprisingly, not very many of those words are meaningful. Of the average person's 16,000 words that they speak, only about 500 are meaningful. So what do you think I mean by meaningful? What makes a word meaningful?
Meaningful makes someone happier.
Right? They make them feel something. It's a word that makes someone feel something. Yeah, that's one of the things I thought of. No?
If it enlightens someone or is better, it benefits society.
Yeah, if it's enlightening or it does something transformative to a person or to society as a whole, right? That's big. Anyone else have anything? To learn stuff about God, right? When we're learning things, those words are meaningful, especially when we're learning about God. Does anyone else, any parents have anything? What makes a word meaningful to you?
I think you put in the deep category because a lot of times we're just trying to get through the schedules and the work.
Yeah, so what makes a word different from just like something that you're doing at work or just your daily schedule? What makes it deep then?
The way you say something has a big impact.
The way you say it, so like the tone of your voice when you're saying it, exactly.
Right, even words that speak blessing into somebody's life.
Words that speak blessing, that's really big, and we're gonna sort of hit on that later on. Some of the other things that I wrote down about this is sometimes the situation that you're in makes a word meaningful. Maybe the time and place or the people that you're with. Oftentimes, going back to the movie quotes, when I think of my favorite movies and my favorite movie quotes, and movie quotes mean a lot to me, I think of the movies that I watched with my dad together, our favorite movies, because we were together and I was with him. So those words have more meaning to me than perhaps just some movie I went with my friends to the movie theater, you know? And the other important point, of course, is the actual words themselves, the information that the words convey, right? So this leads to the next point, and Nolan has already put it up for me, is that meaningful words, this small subset of the entire noise of the life that we have, all these words, are powerful. So just how powerful can our words be? Nolan, if you could go to the next slide. So in the book of Proverbs, there's this one verse. It says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." The power of life and death. I don't know about y'all, but that seems pretty powerful to me. Probably the most powerful way something can be. And if you go to the next one, second verse from Proverbs. "The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." So we can see that our words can either be used to hurt or to heal. That they have great power, even the power of life and death. And then there's one more. Maybe one of y'all would like to read this one for me. It's from the book of James. Let's see, maybe someone who hasn't talked yet. You haven't talked much, have you?
A bit in the mouth of a horse controls the whole horse. A small rudder on the position in the hands of a single captain sends the horse in the face of his strongest one. The word out of your mouth makes you of no account for you.
verse from James, we can see that words are really powerful. They're small, but they can control big things, as big as a ship. But a careless word, something you think has no count, can start a raging fire. It can ruin the world, turn harmony into chaos, throw mud on a reputation. So we have to be very careful with these words because words are powerful. Can you go next slide? So when I was thinking about coming up with this lesson, and I was thinking about powerful words, I sort of came up with four categories of powerful words, sort of under two headings here. So words can either be hurtful or uplifting. Hurtful, destructive, toxic, words that would throw the world into chaos and throw mud on a reputation. Or words that are uplifting, that are encouraging, that are soothing. So we have those types of words. But that's not the only sort of dimension to this. Our words can either be intentional or unintentional. And the way that we make our words make others feel is often unintentional. A few short words can change the course of someone's life. They're transformative, just as the rudder controls the ship. But sometimes the careless word is the sword, and it can pierce someone. So here I have these four categories. Words that can be hurtful intentionally, can be intentionally uplifting, things that are hurtful but maybe unintentionally, and then words that are uplifting unintentionally. So what I want us to do is a little bit of an exercise together. Maybe y'all can help me pass it out. So I printed out this chart for everybody to look at. Maybe y'all can pass it around. And maybe if you could start passing kids around too.
Yeah.
So while we're passing these out, what I want us to do is think about these four categories. And then think about in your life,
Do you want one?
maybe sometime you've experienced, or maybe you said words that fall into each of these four categories. And so you can think about them, you can write them down, you can talk about them with your neighbor if you want. So we're going to spend a few minutes doing this, and then we'll come back together and maybe discuss our answers. We're gonna write down the top, as Patterson said. Words that are unintentional, we don't remember those because we don't know the consequences. We don't know how we're making the other person feel. Would anyone here be willing to maybe share an example for each category that they came up with? Let's start with you. Which category?
So for, what should I start with?
Just pick one. You're gonna do one. Only one.
Okay, unintentional uplifting.
Unintentional uplifting.
Yesterday, we were doing a social studies thing and, we did a presentation and this guy made a joke and he didn't even know it. So that was unintentional.
Or unintentionally funny, right? Was it uplifting though?
I guess when someone is sad.
When someone's sad, sometimes a joke can be uplifting.
Unintentional hurtful.
Unintentional hurtful. Sarcasm, right? Or making a joke maybe with your friends that you don't intend to hurt them, but maybe they feel differently than that. Yeah, that's definitely one I thought about. Anna.
Intentional uplifting, when like someone's like sitting alone, you want to sit with them and say to one.
There you go, yeah, going up, even the action of just going up to them and talking to them. Maybe the words even in that case don't even matter, just that you say them. Right.
Okay, unintentional hurtful, like when somebody tells you the truth but they don't mean to hurt your feelings.
There you go. Yeah.
Your breath smells like dog.
That's an interesting insult there, but I see what you mean, right? Maybe you're trying to tell someone, you're criticizing them, right? Maybe you're trying to constructively criticize them, but they don't take it the same way, right?
Intentional uplifting. Yesterday, on Friday, some kid walked up to me when I was walking around, and And he's like, cool jeans, dude. So,
That's awesome. I'm glad. But that made you feel good, right? You're like, I have good style. Awesome. And maybe one more. What do y'all think?
Intentional uplifting. Say someone lost a family member or something, everything will be alright.
Yeah. Maybe, especially if you know that someone's going through a hard time, and then sharing some words. So personally, some of the ones that I came up with for at least unintentional uplifting, and I shared this with some of y'all, is just maybe saying hello, saying a greeting. I have a friend of mine who's always super positive. She has great personality. She always has enthusiasm, and she's just a great person to hang around. But every time she sees me, enthusiastically she goes, "Hi, Taylor," and she wants to give me a hug. And she does this to basically everyone that she knows. And that's just her personality. I think it's kind of intentional, but it's somewhat unintentional too. But just being on the receiving end of that enthusiasm, of those words, makes you feel really, really good. So that's just one of my examples. What if we consider some specific categories then? What about things like rumors and gossip? What kind of categories do those fall into? Intentionally hurtful?
or unintentional.
Or unintentionally hurtful, right? Sometimes we're just, maybe think we're sharing information. We're just talking to our friends about something that happened. But in that way, we could be gossiping. We could be sharing maybe misleading information. Yes.
Sometimes when you ask, like if you think someone got in a fight with someone and you say, hey, can you get in a fight with someone and stuff, they might think that the other person's mad at them and it can cause a problem even though you didn't know, you're just asking.
Exactly, right? Sometimes we can perpetuate a problem just by talking about it. We already talked about some things like criticism, right? We said that can sometimes be unintentionally hurtful, but it can also be intentionally uplifting if we use it in the right way. We talked about sarcasm, maybe making jokes, people taking it the wrong way. We talked about greetings. What about swearing? What do you think that falls under? Unintentional hurtful?
Because you don't know who might have been sleeping. But some
Right.
people are fine with it, but other people, like, they're really
Yes.
I think it depends how you're saying it, because a lot of people, if you like drop something or you mess up, you're almost like you're hurt, but if you're like saying it to someone.
Yes, exactly. It can go either way, right? Sometimes when I think of swearing, it tends to be unintentional when it comes out. But right, if you're being intentional while directing at someone, that's definitely hurtful and definitely intentional. And then one more, of course, what about a compliment? Where do you think that falls? Unintentional or intentional?
Unintentional.
But either way, it's uplifting, right? So maybe we can see through these 4 categories that these are sort of capture a lot of the words that have power in our lives. And they don't capture all of them. Sometimes there's more neutral categories. Maybe someone's just sharing information with you that makes you feel a certain way. But I hope that we can see in this exercise that once the words come out of our mouth, either intentionally or unintentionally, you can't take them back. And that oftentimes things that we don't intend come about. There are always unintentional consequences. And so this leads to the final point. We need to be intentional with our words and be held accountable for what we say. So do you remember when we talked about the things that make words meaningful? Make them have power in the first place. We mentioned things like the time and place, the people you're with, the actual information of the words, how the words make you feel, if they're transformative on someone. Since we can never really know the circumstances of someone else, we can never really know their feelings, oftentimes we can never really know the extent of the power of our words. A certain word said at the right time to the right person could brighten their day, give them hope in a dark time. But a careless and a reckless word could ruin a friendship, could destroy a confidence, or it could send someone spiraling down into a deep depression. We never truly know. What if in the next day, next 24 hours, you wrote down, or even better, it was magically recorded down, every hurtful word that you used. Every time you were gossiping or judging someone behind their back, every time you swore, every time you even jokingly put someone down, even someone close to you. Would you be happy with the length of that list? Probably not. And if it recorded even things we meant were unintentional, then definitely not. But on the flip side, what if you recorded every uplifting word, every encouraging word, every compliment, every helping hand you offered, or even just a greeting, asking someone how their day was? Do you think you'd be pleasantly surprised by the length of that list? Maybe, yeah. So the point is that we don't keep very good track of our words. We don't have a record of everything that we said. There's so many words that come out of our mouths, so many words that we hear. Remember, 16,000 a day that we speak? That a lot of them get lost in the mess. And like I said, most of them are just filler anyway. But some of them do have that meaning, and you don't always know when that meaning is. Since we don't know when that occasion is going to arise, we must be mindful and intentional. If we read this verse from Ephesians, Nolan, if we go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. So these words are definitely hard. It's very hard to always be uplifting, especially when you don't feel uplifting or uplifted yourself. I mean, personally, I've hurled more insults, comebacks, sarcasm to the people that are closest to me, to my friends and family, than we could probably count on all the fingers and toes in this room. But then, I guess we could say this. This entire time then, Taylor, you said we were talking about the 10 Commandments, right? But Taylor, you haven't talked about the 10 Commandments this whole time. We've just been talking about words. But there is one commandment, I think, linked specifically to the power of words, and it's this one. Do not use the Lord's name in vain. I've probably broken this commandment more times than I can count. So what does this commandment mean? Do not use the Lord's name in vain. If you want to go off and explain. Yeah, exactly. Don't swear using the Lord's name. Maybe something else.
Pretty much saying like don't swear to God.
Exactly. I think of it as don't use God's name disrespectfully. Don't misuse God's name. Right? I've always thought this commandment was just intended to remind us of God's awesome power. That His name is holy, that it's sacred, that it's above our daily lives, and that we must honor it. That's usually what I think of when I think of this commandment. But in coming up with this lesson, I think of it a little bit differently. God's name is a very powerful word. Maybe the most powerful word. This commandment is telling us to be intentional about using God's name. But it's also telling us to be intentional with our words of power. Because unintentional use can have unforeseen consequences. At the beginning, Stacy said that the 10 Commandments are a blessing that sets us free. In what way do you think that this commandment, do not use the Lord's name in vain, is a blessing? Do you think about it?
It kind of saves us from disrespecting God, and not like it would shame you forever, and like going back to what, I don't know who it was that said it, but it was like shame generations of your descendants and stuff. It's just kind of like protecting you if you follow it, like you're not cursing with God's name under it.
Yeah, right? It's part of His way of protecting us, of keeping us safe, right? Does anyone else have anything to add to that? No, any parents have anything to add to that?
I think if you respect God properly, it means that you know Him.
Do you
And
know
He
him?
wants us to spend time learning who He is and knowing Him and having a close relationship with Him.
Yeah, very good. I like it. I hadn't thought of that one. That's great. So I think of it as a blessing. Oh, one more?
I think also a lot of times when I hear this commandment, I've heard people talk about it in different ways. And when we say do not use the Lord's name in vain, we often think of a specific word or a specific phrase. But I think it's also applicable to saying, tell the world that you're a Christian and then go out and use intentional hurtful words or unintentional hurtful words and not be intentional with your words and your actions, because you're still professing the Lord's name as your Savior, but then you're doing things that are completely disrespectful of that relationship. And so I've heard I was really impressed when I heard that, of not just a word or a phrase, but claiming yourself to be God or in the image of God and then acting in a way that shames that.
Yes, right. We're being hypocrites if we do that. And I think that's sort of right on point. The way I was thinking of that is the blessing of His commandment is that God has given us His name. But I think if we call ourselves Christians, we're taking on the name of Christ. And as he just mentioned, we want to live up to that. We don't say our hurtful words if we're saying that we're also Christians. And that is exactly on point. So He's gifted us with His name. We must live up to it. But He's also gifted us with the power of words. The power of words to communicate. Because He knows that we are capable of using them to lift others up. That's what I think the blessing of the power of the words is. We were given the power of words so that we can live up to God's name and so that we can lift others up with our words. When we're intentional about what we say, then we have control. If we go back to think about those metaphors in James, we become that skilled captain, using the rudder, which is our words, to steer the ship of our life through the passing storms to our intended destination. And when we have the control, when we have the intentional words, then we also have the power to pick others up from drowning in their own storms. So just to conclude, in the midst of all the noise, this world filled with words, I want us to recognize first that our words do have power to hurt and to heal. And that when we are intentional with our words, just as we are intentional with the Lord's name, then we can truly lift each other up. Okay, I'm going to close us in prayer now. Dear most Heavenly Father, you are a good Father. You have blessed us with your name. We just ask that today we will live up to our name as Christians. That today we will make an effort to be intentional with our words. An effort to be intentionally uplifting. Because we never know when we might affect someone else. Whatever struggles that we're going through today, just be there beside us, Lord. And even though we don't know the struggles that someone else may have beside us, just help us to say the words that may possibly help them too. In Jesus' name we pray.
Thanks, Taylor. Next week we're going to figure out how murder might apply in unique ways. Lucky me, I get to do that one.